Greetings, fellow students of the Dreaming Spires platform. It's me, Letty, and boy have I been looking forward to this one. We are going to be taking a look into the everyday lives of Vikings. I'm very excited. I've always been fascinated by the mundane, the little things in life that make people people, and this presentation is all about that. I hope you enjoy! So let's kick things off with what a Viking would normally wear. Now, I have tried to recreate this, but I don't have much Viking stuff at all, so I've just had to, do what I could with what I had. Anyway, your average Viking would be wearing trousers and an inner tunic, which I didn't have, so I wore a shirt, don't mind that, an outer tunic, sometimes with a fur trim. Then they really like to have a belt with stuff on it. Bags, very, very utility belt sort of thing. And leg wraps to help keep their legs warm. And that's it. Congratulations, you are now a Viking, and you can do all sorts of fun activities that Vikings did, such as farming and stealing. Now, this next section of the presentation, I warn you now, is pretty long, and it's sort of the more serious info bit. But please do stick around, because at the end, we are going to be sharing some facts that I assure you nobody has ever asked or heard of before. So you'll be the first, congratulations. And then we'll also be holding a funeral for a friend of mine, Viking style, so stick around, please do. So, now that we've discussed what the Vikings wore, let's dive into some more information about their day-to-day lives. They lived in long houses, which were long houses, go figure, made of whatever the Vikings had on hand. Some of them were made of stone and mud, some with wood, anything that worked as a building material, really. On the inside, unless you were filthy rich, there was only one long room with a hearth at the centre. Hearths were the most important part of the house in those days, and life revolved around them. After all, people would cook with them, dry their clothes by them, and gather around them when it was cold. And the other feature of the house would be the beds, which the Vikings slept on. Wow. Sleeping was a very communal affair, and even if you did have multiple rooms in your house, everyone would still sleep in the same room. Often furniture that was used for sleeping at night would be used as seating during the day, like in a camper van, I guess. Right, moving on to day in the life. So the work that Vikings did was fairly simple. The males did outdoor farm labour and handyman work such as building and chopping wood, which is why a tan was highly regarded on a man in those days. It meant that he was out there providing for the family. And whilst their Viking husbands were out working the land, the women would do more of the domestic indoor side of things. They prepared food, cleaned, made clothes, spun a whole load of yarn on their spinning wheels. They looked after everyone and more. The women were very busy. Pale skin was desirable among them because it showed that they were spending less time outdoors and doing, what their gender roles asked of them. So, moving on. An average day in the life of a Viking would go as follows. They would get up and then soon the biggest meal of the day would be served. Having their big meal in the morning ensured that they would have enough energy for the day ahead. And then they would go and do their separate duties. The men would go and take care of their side of things, and women would do theirs, and the kids would do smaller jobs such as collecting eggs or whatever. As for food, they didn't really have a lunchtime, which has really cemented my opinion that I wouldn't last long in the Viking age. And then they would have an evening meal as well, and then perhaps they would enjoy some leisure time before bed, which brings us very smoothly into our next topic. Fun. Although the Vikings didn't have much time for fun, there were still a few things that they would do for enjoyment. They played a few games that I have no hope of pronouncing, a ball game thing, wrote poetry, and played music. Now, unfortunately, there is no surviving written music from the Vikings, so we don't really know how it sounds, although many instruments have been uncovered, so we do know that they played. This means that we don't know what their music sounded like, unfortunately. Although this does leave plenty of room for imagination. Perhaps they were in their hang on, let me just check my Spotify Wrapped a second. Yeah, maybe they were in their psychedelic sitar progressive rock era. Or perhaps they were more into the steampunk actor dark cabaret side of things. I mean, it could be any of them for all we know. Now, things. I won't dwell too long on things because I've already yapped about them enough, but they were basically community meetings that acted a bit like a court. People could discuss the town rules, settle disputes, and sometimes fight in order to settle those disputes. Fun times all round. Go read my narration about it if you want to waste a few minutes of your life. Right, and that brings us to the end of the yapping segment, which means that we're now on to the fun bit. Thank you so much for sticking around for the actual bit of the presentation that is good. Yeah, thanks. And now, my friends, it is time for the moment that you have all been waiting for. We have got some fun facts about the Vikings, two to be exact, because I couldn't really think up a third one. Now, don't worry, there will be none of the they didn't really have horned helmets stuff here, because we all already knew that. No, no, no. This segment is for real facts that most people wouldn't know, and most people literally have never asked before. In fact, I might be the only one. But anyway, fact number one. The largest Viking Age longhouse ever found, belonged to a chieftain in the Lofoten Islands, is 83 metres long and 9 wide. This would be enough space to free range about 9,711 chickens. Wow. Fact number two. The longest Viking longship ever discovered was the Roskilde 6, which was almost 19 Jeremy Clarksons long. Fascinating stuff. And lastly but not leastly, we have fact number three, except as I mentioned before, we do not because I never wrote it into my script. And that's basically the end of the presentation, and there is only one thing left to do now. Some of you may know that my dear snail Giuseppe recently passed away, and I thought what better way to honour his memory than give him a proper Viking send-off. Let's see how that went, shall we?